Welcome to The Man Who Kept Dying. My name is Vincent Olivier. I am the author of a novel titled The Man Who Kept Dying, and I am the man who kept dying. In this video, I will take you through my near-death experience, or NDE, that happened a few years ago, and explain how it became the basis for writing this novel. But before we go into the NDE itself, I thought we should start with a couple of definitions of what is a near-death experience. So I went online and I found two definitions. The first one is from the Merriam-Webster website, and it states that an NDE is, forgive me, I'm reading on paper, an occurrence in which a person comes very close to dying and has memories of a spiritual experience during the time death was near. And they give examples such as meeting dead friends and family members or seeing a white light. Another definition I also found online, this time from the Oxford Learners' Dictionaries, is the following one: an occasion when somebody almost dies, which they often remember as leaving their body or going down a tunnel. Now, what I find quite interesting about these two definitions is a near-death experience. I did a bit of research on NDEs following mine, and it's about 2% of the world population would have an NDE in their life, which seems quite a lot to me. And also, there have been cases of people who were pronounced dead who came back to life. So I would say there is the near-death experience, but there also is the death experience. And my experience, at least from my perspective, is closer to a death experience rather than a near-death experience. Talking of which, let's dive into it, shall we? So, let me take you back to a Thursday evening in mid-January 2018. It's a damp, cold, grey month in South England, and it's a time in my life when I'm under a lot of stress. So I'm working 5 days a week, full-time, hard job, or not a hard job, but very stressful job. On top of that, I'm studying in the evening. I have to work on some weekends, so my time is really crap. At that time, and I think it's important to mention it now, deep down, I have a desire to press pause with life. It's getting too stressful. I've got too much on my plate, and there is that sort of like underlying desire to say things are moving too fast. I need to slow down. This is just to give you a bit of context. So let's go to that Thursday evening. Me and my wife, we're going to the restaurant. I feel like I just need a moment of pause. Of course, she's got her concerns that I'm doing too much, and she's encouraging me to slow down a bit. And we're at the restaurant. We start dinner. Everything's going well until one moment, and I feel like a very sharp sensation on the right side of my abdomen. And at first, it's just an unpleasant sensation. But for some reason, it doesn't go away. So my wife asked me, should we, go home or not? I say, let's carry on having dinner. It might just be the stress. So I'm just feeling something and it will go away. But it stayed there. The unpleasant sensation during dinner does not go away. So we skip dessert, get back home, and now the unpleasant sensation is becoming sharper and sharper and starting to really be painful. I barely managed to sleep throughout the night. The pain is coming stronger and stronger. And it's also coming a bit like in cycles. So if I manage to get a bit of sleep, it will wake me up. I'm wincing in pain. So we call the emergency services, which is 999 in the UK. It's like something like 5 in the morning, and the operator, he or she, can't remember, um, told us, you need to go, you need to get checked by a doctor, and they sent me to the nearest hospital. So it must be around 6 in the morning now. We're driving to hospital, or my wife is driving me because I cannot even sit in the passenger seat. I have to lay on the back of the car. Such is the pain. We arrive at the hospital. I almost collapse due to pain, but I'm on the floor of the hospital, really having a hard time coping with the degree of pain. To give you a bit of context with regards to pain levels I was feeling at the time, I learned later on by reading an article from a woman who had gone through the same situation as I had, but had also given birth, and she compared the pain of that medical condition and stated that it was stronger in her perspective than giving birth. Well, anyway, I get checked by a doctor, and the doctor tells me, you've got indigestion. And at first I'm a bit baffled because I say, no, listen, doc, I've had it before. It's never been that bad. There's something else. And she says, no, well, you were at the restaurant. It's probably the food you had. You have a lot of stress. It could be just that. Sometimes the body plays tricks in very strange ways. She gives me some medication right away, makes me vomit. And for some reason, I feel better right away, instantly. And she says, see, you probably just had something in your system. You needed to get rid of it. You should get better. But anyway, go back home. If the situation deteriorates or your health doesn't improve, just call us back. Unfortunately, I went back home and the pain came back stronger than ever before. So we spent the Friday like that. I cannot go to the office. I struggle sleeping every time I'm having food. I keep rejecting it. Saturday, same. And I remember at that time I was saying, especially on a Saturday, I said to my wife multiple times, I'm dying. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like my body's failing me completely. So in the early hours of Saturday to Sunday, we call 999 again. And this time they send an ambulance right away. The paramedic comes in the early hours of Sunday morning. I'm downstairs. I'm laying on my sofa. And he takes a few, usual questionnaires, asks what's been happening. He gives me some painkillers through IV. And even the painkillers don't really have any effect on me. It's so much pain. All I can feel is like the unpleasant sensation of the warm fluid going through my veins. That's the only thing I can feel. But also, it gives me a mask. It's linked to like some medical gases or oxygen, I'm not sure. And he says just like, take a few deep breaths. As you can see, I'm really suffering. And that should help you relax a little bit if you like. So I take a couple of breaths through that, quite strong ones. And the next instant, boom, I'm in complete blackness, floating in a dark void, if you like. I'm bereft of a body. I don't feel I have a body, but I'm conscious. And I'm kind of wondering where I am. There's nothing around me, absolutely nothing. Then I seem to be floating, and that doesn't really seem to bother me. I don't even remember the physical pain. I don't even know how I got there. I've got no memory whatsoever. I'm just here floating in that dark void. Then, in a distance, I see a tiny speck of light. And as soon as I see it, it's like I'm going in that direction at the speed of light. It grows bigger, Whether it's it coming to me or me going towards it, not certain, but I'm getting closer to it. And as I'm getting closer to it, in that big circle of light, if you like, I see the silhouettes of beings. And all I can see is they're kind of like they're black. I can't see their face. I can't see how they're dressed. I can't see their body. I just see the shape. So because of the light, it gives them like kind of a dark shape that contrasts with the light. By no means am I saying that they are dark beings. And the thing that strikes me right away is, although I cannot see them, I know that I know them. And I know that I've seen them before, and I know that I've known them before from a very long time. I've not seen them in a while, and they feel to me like they're more family than my own family. And I'm quite happy to see them. And at the same time, something occurs to me. If I'm seeing them, it means that I'm dying. And that's not a great thing. And right away, I think about my wife. She's the first person that comes to mind. And I sort of like put my foot on the brake. I get so close to the light, I just stop. And I look at the beings, I can't see their face, but I look at them and I yell, "No fucking way, pas maintenant." Pas maintenant in French means not now. So why did I mix two languages? I don't know, but that's what came in the moment. So I yell, "No fucking way, pas maintenant." And I'm thinking, I'm too young. I can't end my life right now. I'm just like, I've got so many more things to do. That's just not the right time. There must have been a mistake. So the next instant, it's like the beings just approve of that and say, yeah, okay, whatever. And boom, I'm sort of like the light, I'm taken away from it. It becomes really tiny again. And I open my eyes and my wife is touching my shoulder. And she's saying, "Vincent, are you okay?" And I look at her and I look around me. And I just don't comprehend what had just happened. So the first thing I do is I grab the mask again and I try to reproduce what had just happened. Because at the time, I thought I just had a hallucination due to the medical gases or the oxygen or whatever was in there. Perhaps the combination of that and the painkillers. But anyway, something happened that made me hallucinate the whole situation. So I said, almost like in a scientific manner, I can replicate it. And I can't. Nothing happens. My wife looks at me. She looks like completely panicked. And so I drop the mask and say, yeah, I'm okay. And then the pain comes back, the physical pain. And at that moment, I realized that in that other place where I had found myself a moment ago, I had no pain. I was totally pain-free, and I did not have a body, yet I was conscious. I really could not comprehend how that was possible. But because the pain comes back, I focus back on the reality I'm in, which is, I don't know what's happening to me. I'm dying, or I've just died, whatever, but I'm in urgent need of medical care. And the paramedic says very quickly, "We need to take you to hospital. Your situation is very urgent. So pack a few things, go to hospital." They do quite a few checks on me, and they explain to me that they believe my current medical condition is the result of a previous emergency surgery I had when I was a kid, which at the time I believed was minor, but apparently I did not heal properly from it. And unbeknown to me, I was living with a ticking bomb inside me, and the bomb just detonated on the Thursday. And I challenged them a bit on that front, because I'm like, why now? And they said, impossible to tell. Could have happened 10 years ago, could happen in 10 years, could have never happened at all. It's just so that it is happening now. So you need to go through surgery probably. And I try to avoid anything too invasive. So for a couple of days we try to have non-invasive methods to see if we can clear the problem. In the meantime, I've got one surgeon that's offering to do surgery on me. I'm not too confident about that specific surgeon. But a couple of days later, another surgeon comes. We really gel on his approach. He understands that at the time I'm quite young, I'm fit, I'm in a very good and very healthy conditions aside from that problem. So he says, yeah, you know what, I'll do the surgery. So I undergo surgery, and during the whole time, those few days in the hospital, before the surgery, I had that inner belief or knowingness, to be more specific, that nothing could happen to me. Because it's like I could not die. What I learned later on is the surgery I had has a morbidity rate of 40%. So imagine 2 out of 5 people never make it through. I let that sink in. However, I'm pretty certain that if I had known that figure at the time, I would not have worried. A, because I would have focused my mind on being part of the 3 that make it through, but also because of that inner knowingness. And please don't see any arrogance in it. It's just what it was at the time. I knew I would not have a problem. My only concern, if you like, was to find a surgeon who would make sure that I would get out of it in one piece, so to speak, with minimal repair to have to do on my body. And that's exactly what happened. So after the surgery, I was off for 2.5 months. Couldn't go to work, and I had to focus on my physical rehab because this type of surgery I had takes about 18 months to recover. So the first 6 months are very fast recovery, probably about 70%. Then you get another 6 months, 20%, and the last 10%, the last 6 months again. But that time I had off following the surgery, in a way, was the pause that I subconsciously needed and that I subconsciously sort of created for myself. Now, I don't recommend a near-death experience to anyone because it means your health condition is pretty bad. It also means like there's necessarily a lot of rehab happening after that. But where I'm going with that story of the following the NDE is that I had completely forgotten about the NDE. I did not even remember it happening. I was so focused on my mental, emotional, psychological, and also physical repair or rehab that I had completely forgotten about it. And interestingly, if you ask me now, or even a few months later, I would have told you that 2018 was a great year for me. Because although it started very badly or not in the most ideal conditions, following that experience, I had a renewed appreciation for life. And I pushed myself to do more, to travel more, to enjoy the moment. My outlook on life had started to really change following that surgery. And at the time, I did not even remember about the NDE. What made me remember the NDE was an article shared by my mom in September of that same year, so 2018. And that article, I'm not even sure why she sent it to me, but it was about a doctor who was fascinated by patients having gone through near-death experiences. And he had partnered with a hypnotherapist who had developed a hypnosis technique to bring people to that state of being in an out-of-body, so to speak, experience, but with that, the medical urgency associated with it. And I read the article, and the writer of the article submitted himself to the hypnosis, and it was a group hypnosis. So following the hypnosis, everyone was sharing their experience. And what the writer of the article explained, or his experience plus the experience from the other people, meeting beings on the other side, seeing a white light, being in the void. It illuminated something in my memory. And the memory of the NDE, of my experience of being in the dark, seeing the beings, saying, no, I want to continue with life, it came back in a flash. And I remember sort of like my jaw dropping and wondering what had happened to me. And thinking, dear me, I had a near-death experience. I had completely forgotten about it. How is that even possible that I would have forgotten about something so important? But I had. So, in the evening, I asked my wife, you know, on the Sunday morning before the paramedic took me to hospital, you were touching my shoulder at one point and talking to me when I was laying on the sofa. Can you tell me why you did that? And she turns to me, and whatever she was doing almost drops the plates, and she's like, why are you asking? Well, I proceeded to tell her about the article that I had read earlier in the day and the experience I had at the time. And her face completely changes, and she goes very, very serious, and she says, well, listen, I never mentioned it to you, but at the time, I thought you were dead. And I say, how so? And she said, basically, you were, one second I was watching you, and you took the mask and you started inhaling, and then I was watching the paramedic, he was taking some notes. Then the next time I looked at you, you had dropped the mask, and essentially you looked lifeless. And I kneeled down by your side, I look in your eyes, there was just no life left in you. So to me, you were dead. That's why I touched your shoulder, that's why I said your name, and that's why I was like, Vincent, are you okay? And it took you a couple of seconds to, and from that moment I was like, wow, I don't know what happened, you just maybe lost consciousness, but you really looked dead. And so to me that was it. I said, wow, do you realize what's just happened? That's the confirmation that I had gone through NDE, and actually you're my witness for that, because it's not just my own hallucination, so to speak. What's interesting as well is, for her it lasted a very short time, whereas for me my experience seems not that very long, but a lot longer than what she described. And so the remembrance of the NDE kick-started the journey into understanding what had happened on that day, at that moment. Because I've had a few experiences encountering death, so to speak, and I'll do a specific video about it. But none of them has ever left me with such an experience. And so that remembrance of the NDE opened the door to a journey into what I now call consciousness. And that will be the topic of the next video, to explain to you how that journey went and what steps I took during it. But as I wrote a novel many, many months later, titled The Man Who Kept Dying, the idea behind this novel was to use the near-death experience that I had and to explore the following question. What if I had actually met with those beings? What if I had actually gone through the light, taking the time to talk to the beings that were waiting behind the light? And what would they have told me? And what experiences would I have had at the time? And maybe, what if I had those experiences, but I just don't remember them? That's a possibility, maybe. So that's the idea behind the novel. There's not much more to say on the NDE. I've shared how it happened. And so that was a very long story just to tell a short NDE. But I hope you enjoyed the story. I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. And if you have similar stories that you would like to share, please feel free to do so, because it's always enriching to know that other people have gone through the same experience or similar types of experience. And until next time, be conscious, my friends.